Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another video. In this video, I will be putting to the test if you have now begun opening the ears of the student to the lessons of the master. In order to do so, I'm going to essentially see if you have discovered or have begun developing within yourself your own echolocation. And so let's put it to the test. I'm going to sing a small melody, and the more I sing it, the less I will use my vocal resonance, and the more I will start using my internal resonance. And you as a viewer, I would like to see if you may carry the tune internally yourself without me singing it anymore. This tune is called Man, and it goes a little something like this. And now you may see it feels like an echo memory, right? Where you are now actively carrying a memory of that particular echo. But what do you think it is? Echolocation. It is specifically the echo of where you last heard that memory speak, which is how whales use echolocation or echolocation in order to travel and find each other in the ocean. The reason we now find whales being beached upon the ocean is because the last time they heard the echo in that particular spot in the sea, there was still water there, where now we see it has dried up, and we now see whales end up beached up. Because that is what the echolocation is, the echolocation. It is a memory of the initial voice, the initial echo. And now when you remember the initial echo, you may recognize it internally. The problem now resides in how many vocal resonances does an individual use according to the, not necessarily personalities, but the emotions that which they are experiencing at that particular time. We now see that your vocal resonance also is a representation of your internal state. Which now, if you see an individual change their resonance as they speak, imagine now your resonance is as a blade, and the harder or the more you activate the swing, the more powerful its resonance in the strike when you speak the truth. The problem with speaking the truth is in the understanding that Excalibur, the fine blade that was removed from the stone only by the worthy, and this fine blade is in fact the truth. A sword, a blade that cuts both ways if it is not used properly, which is why only King Arthur in the tale was meant to remove the sword from the stone, because he was the only one that knew how to speak the truth. And now we arrive here today. can feel the echo resonance. The problem now is, do you trust it? Because see, we are not just physical beings as humans. We are both mental, spiritual, and physical beings. Which means now you need to understand the particular fundamental truth about quantum physics, which is a correlation of all these particular statements of dimensions related into one particular thing. When you are alone in your anxieties you experience with your echolocation, where you may feel as though bad things are happening to people, or your friends, people you care about, or you simply feel not in control of your mind anymore. That is the beginning of spirituality, unfortunately. Because you see, the moment you awaken the darkness, enlightenment is not about imagining figures of light, as said by Carl Jung. Enlightenment is about making the darkness conscious, which now you see in your echolocation, you are now aware of the evils of the world. The problem now resides in how do you react beyond that point, because it's going to break your heart. It's going to break your heart and hurt a lot every single day for the rest of your life. Because on top of the mental lashings were also the physical wounds. Now you begin to arise, you begin to see the complex of the mind known as the Christ consciousness, which is an individual that will continuously endure and is resilient. But in that particular individual, we also see a great deal of suffering. And that might be as a result of their lack of ability to have a person or people to communicate with. Now, in understanding echolocation or echolocation, you might now say, well, technically you should never feel alone. And you're right. Just because you never feel alone doesn't mean you aren't lonely at that particular point. Because you're able to communicate mentally when you're alone, it does not mean that you do not seek to also be able to simply just be able to look at a human while you interact. Because you can tell it's real at that point. The further you go from the echo, the more it creates a beaching process, you could say, for you, the descendant of the whale. Because now you see that you are actively going to be driving yourself crazy to the point you will essentially be willing to even chase beaching yourself upon a beach of sand where you know you will die. Because that's how bad you wish to chase that echo. That's how bad that whale wants to get there. Echolocation is, in essence, a resonant bell which begins ringing the moment you introduce an outside substance to the brain as it develops. And so now you see in the particular explanation, this sounds like schizophrenia, right? Which is essentially what echolocation is. It's not a disease, it is actually an adaptation to the environment. Which if whales themselves still have to this day, what's to say that we as humans, descendants of whales from millions of years ago, do not still carry the same adaptation? I've presented the evidence, and yet no one wishes to study for it. Because everyone is afraid of the mind in the Western world. That is the world's greatest fear, the fear of the unknown. How can we prove something we can't see? We can cut into it to see if it actually is there. But the more you dissect and the more you dissect and the more you dissect, eventually the more you realize you're essentially cutting God away from that individual. Because that's what science is. It's the act of cutting God up into pieces in order to find out just how real He is. Because we can actually measure what we can see at that particular point. If I were to ask you, what would be one particular sight or sense, which particular sense would you prefer to keep? And remembering now that echolocation is a part of this sense. If for the rest of your life from this moment forth you had to choose between forever only being able to see but never being able to hear again, or forever being able to hear but never be able to see again, which of the two would you choose and why? Which sense do you find has a deeper resonance in your true experience? Would it hurt more never to be able to look at your loved ones again, or to never be able to hear their resonant voice again, whether that be vocal or internal? Because see, I may be blind to what's in front of me, but I may hear what's stretched within the cosmos for eons and eons and eons. In the beauty of echolocation, you don't just echo within the Earth's atmosphere, you echo within the entire cosmos at that particular point. And so, which sense do you choose? That which you can see or that which you can hear? Because where do you think you're going to find the connection with God? Do you think you will hear Him first, or do you think you will see Him first? And so, in terms of the purpose of this video, was to simply demonstrate that there is a power, and you can feel that power. You can't see it, but you can hear it. And this echolocation can be emitted in different ways. You see, it is as a result of atomic mass that you generate by charging your cells with a level of consciousness at each particular atomic molecular level. Which now you see suffering is a charging state of atomic mass. It condenses the level of consciousness within that particular individual, because even within each singular cellular level, you now see a condensing of atomic mass. That even this echolocation, rather than being emitted here, can be emitted here. You make the ground shake. And in making the world shake as you walk, they can begin sensing you, because the echolocation or the echolocation of your mind warning those around you, you are about to arrive. And then as they feel your steps, that each particular step at a particular point of atomic mass charging, you actively alter the gravitational field known as the Earth's crust. I won't reveal all the new senses and abilities you will achieve as you learn your echolocation, but you will begin to understand that there is a truth behind it. And so, I invite you to meditate. How does the tune go?